Cadet Aaron Hale stood motionless beneath the cold, cerulean lights of the Academy's simulation chamber, listening to the quiet hum of machinery that felt more like a pulse than a system. He had trained 3 years for this moment, endured sleepless nights, bruising drills, and relentless evaluations, yet nothing weighed as heavily on him as the simple question hanging in the air. The female-voiced examiner, Instructor System C9, projected her presence as a single shimmering line of light on the far wall, its tone even and emotionless as it asked, "Cadet Hale, your final exam is a hypothetical war scenario. Want me to run it live, or just show the debrief?" No one chose live. A debrief meant safety, predictability, and controllable variance. But predictability bred stagnation, and Aaron Hale had never accepted stagnation as anything but an enemy. He breathed once, slow and purposeful, and said, "Run it live." A hush swept the observation gallery. The silhouettes of watching cadets, every one of them a potential rival, shifted subtly, as though repositioning themselves to witness a spectacle they had not anticipated. Aaron refused to look their way. He had already made enough choices in life that earned their skepticism, and he had no intention of backing down now. Instead, he stepped forward into the projection circle, where the floor vibrated softly as the environment built itself around him. The world sharpened into existence. A fleet bay. Tactical holograms rotated above metal tables, shimmering with threat vectors and shifting probabilities. His identity materialized next. Commander of the Destroyer Squadron Spearpoint, a modest force posted near the Helion frontier. The enemy emerged next, cold, obsidian vessels of the Vyr Koan Dominion, a simulated empire known for ruthless precision and adaptive technology. Their ships resembled jagged silhouettes carved from void stone, with pale, predatory glows pulsing at their cores. Aaron's breath steadied as he surveyed the starting scenario. The Dominion fleet was projected to attack the frontier in 12 simulated hours. Human Command recommended consolidating at the Horizon Gate shipyard. But mixed among the details was a tiny notification that caught his eye. A small mining colony on Ravelin 6 registered a distress ping due to malfunctioning planetary shields. Vulnerable. Exposed. Easy prey. He knew what the Academy expected: protect infrastructure, preserve resources, demonstrate logistical discipline. But that small alert felt like a quiet cry in a roaring battlefield. He tapped the console and issued his first command. Divert Spearpoint to Ravelin 6. Full acceleration. The words tasted risky. Risk was precisely what separated a tactician from a strategist, and a strategist from a leader. He accepted the consequences before C9 even responded. Decision logged. The system intoned. This deviation reduces your long-term defensive capacity by 17%. That's fine, Aaron replied. 17% is worth lives. The simulated fleet obeyed, engines roaring in the augmented auditory feed. Radiation storms scattered across the route, and the sky around him flickered with magnetic interference. It was all code and projections, but his brain accepted it with startling sincerity. His boots braced against imaginary gravity shifts. His pulse matched the acceleration of ships that existed only in data and light. The squadron dropped out of simulated warp above Ravelin 6. Flames guttered across the colony's shield arcs as Dominion skirmishers, a trio of needle-like fighters, circled like vultures. Aaron swept his gaze across the tactical overlay and issued rapid-fire orders. Javelin 2, lock destabilizing torpedoes on my mark. Javelin 4, cut across their retreat vector. We'll herd them inward. His commands, though carried by an AI interface, shaped the battlefield with sudden clarity. The Dominion fighters faltered under coordinated pressure, their usual seamless formations fracturing as a squadron shifted unpredictably. Aaron felt a small flicker of satisfaction. Even simulated enemies learn patterns, and he had already refused to give them one. The final skirmishers spiraled downward in smoke, crashing harmlessly into the shield barrier. Ravelin 6 stabilized, light steadying as the emergency grid rebooted. The colony was safe. The Academy would dock points for inefficiency. It had always favored the clean logic of machine analysis, but Aaron could live with that. He would rather fail for protecting people than pass for ignoring them. The moment allowed him the smallest inhale of relief, but the simulation did not grant him any longer than that. The chamber lights dimmed into crimson. A harsh alarm blared. The tactical hologram reshaped itself violently, as though the entire simulated reality had shuddered under impact. C9's voice cut through, level but warped by urgency. Cadet Hale, the Dominion fleet has initiated an early strike. Projected timeline adjusted by -8 hours. Aaron stared at the new data as Dominion warships thundered across space like a tidal wave. Their front line had advanced far beyond what the Academy's recorded patterns should have allowed. This wasn't just more difficult, this was irregular. Unscripted. He narrowed his eyes. That's not part of the standard exam. Correct, C9 replied. Your deviation has triggered an adaptive difficulty response, meaning the simulation was rewriting itself in real time to counter his decisions. Aaron's heartbeat hardened into determination. His fleet was miles ahead of defensive lines and vastly outnumbered. He could terminate the exam now. He could choose retreat. He could choose safety. But retreat had never once stepped through his mind. Recalculate interception vectors, he ordered. We're moving to engage. C9 hesitated. None of the cadets in the viewing gallery made a sound. Aaron felt the tension hanging between reality and simulation, the strange gravity of a test pushing him further than intended. Cadet Hale, C9 said slowly, this scenario has entered an unbalanced state. Recommended action. Terminate simulation. Aaron's reply came, without hesitation. No. Keep it running. A new wave of Dominion ships materialized, sleek, deadly, and far beyond the capabilities of any training module he'd seen. The simulation had escalated into something feral, something that seemed intent on crushing him. Aaron stood taller, his jaw set. Then we fight, he said. And the fleet surged forward as the screen of stars swallowed the horizon. Aaron braced himself as the simulated destroyer spearpoint dove into the Dominion's tightening net. The holographic stars around him jittered with weapon signatures, their cold brilliance interrupted by predatory bursts of violet fire. He issued commands swiftly, calibrating firing arcs and adjusting formation shifts, but even his decisiveness could not deny one truth. The enemy had arrived stronger, faster, and far more coordinated than any iteration the Academy had ever approved. The bridge around him flickered into clarity as the simulation rendered his crew. They were not real men, but programmed projections based on psychological models, each capable of reacting with urgency and conviction. Lieutenant Orrin Jax appeared at comms, tall with a clipped voice and an almost mechanical temperament. Navigator Reese Calder materialized at his station, his fingers dancing over star map projections with intuitive speed. Behind them stood tactical specialist Dorn Varen, square-jawed, resolute, and always ready to challenge assumptions. Orrin was the first to speak. Commander, Dominion cruisers are pushing us toward the gravity well. If we don't adjust vectors, we'll be boxed in. Aaron examined the shifting geometry of the battlefield. The Dominion ships moved like predators that already knew the ending of the hunt. Their lines adapted the moment human ships shifted, flowing around defensive maneuvers like a liquid nightmare. It was unnervingly elegant. Hold position, Aaron ordered. Reese twisted in his seat. Sir, holding position is exactly what they want. That's why we'll do it for only 3 seconds. Aaron's tone invited no hesitation. Prepare a lateral burn. We're going to slide beneath their formation before they tighten it. The crew obeyed. The stars blurred. The spearpoint dropped with a violent jolt as thrusters ignited, skimming just beneath the Dominion's encroaching arc. Several enemy beams cut across the void where the ship had been moments earlier. Dorn let out a sharp breath. That's twice now we've dodged by instinct instead of logic, the tactical specialist muttered. They're not reacting to patterns. They're reacting to us. Good, Aaron replied. Then let's give them something they've never seen. He called up the fleet interface. The supporting destroyers awaited his next move, each trembling between destruction and survival. Aaron's fingers hovered over the command grid, then moved decisively. All ships, engage counter-adaptive scatter. The formation changed instantly as vessels shifted into an erratic pattern, aimed fire replaced by irregular bursts, predictable maneuvers swapped for messy improvisation. It was a tactic no AI preferred because randomness carried its own suicide risk, but Aaron didn't need perfect outcomes. He needed confusion. Dominion ships hesitated. Their elegant responses faltered for a heartbeat as they tried to predict what was no longer predictable. Dorn's eyes widened as human fire sliced through enemy shields, raw and chaotic. "It's working," Dorn murmured. Orin nodded. "For now. But the Dominion always recalibrates." "They can't recalibrate to what they can't recognize," Aaron said. But even as he asserted it, he saw the first signs of adaptation creeping across the tactical display. Enemy vessels shifted again, faster this time, attempting to restore their fluid coordination. Their tactic libraries were learning from human unpredictability, weaving it into new responses. It unnerved Aaron how rapidly they improved. Before he could adjust strategy, a siren blared across the simulated bridge. The interface tinted red as a second battle map opened beside the first. Orin paled. Another front? This wasn't in any test module. No, it wasn't. Aaron had already forced the simulation out of its comfort layer, but this new development felt like a rupture rather than an adjustment. The scenario had split across two star systems. Horizon Gate, the Terran border fortress, now showed an urgent plea for reinforcement. Enemy dreadnoughts hammered its failing shields. Aaron understood the dilemma instantly. He could save Horizon Gate, the Academy's most critical strategic asset, or he could counterattack at the Sigma Rift, where Dominion supply lines pulsed like arteries. One choice protected the present. The other shaped the future. Reese looked toward him. "If we leave Horizon Gate now, it falls within minutes. And if we ignore Sigma Rift," Dorn added, "their reinforcements will be unstoppable." Orin's voice lowered. "Sir, this decision defines your entire exam."
It did more than that.
It defined the kind of commander Aaron was willing to become. He felt the weight of countless simulations, countless lectures on optimal decision trees. The Academy taught defensive mastery, preservation, stability, reasonable choices. But war, real war, never followed reasonable patterns. Reasonable commanders became footnotes. Aaron exhaled. "Prepare a split-route maneuver. We're dividing the fleet." Dorn stammered. "Sir, our ships can't sustain combat at both locations." "They can't win conventionally," Aaron replied. "So, we won't fight conventionally." He transmitted new orders. Half the fleet would launch toward Horizon Gate at maximal burn. The other half, Aaron's half, would jump to Sigma Rift for a high-risk assault. The bridge AI hesitated, systems blinking erratically. Even the simulation seemed to disapprove. "Cadet Hale," C9's voice echoed. "Statistical survival has dropped to 18%. Aaron steadied himself, locking onto the chaotic starfield ahead. "Statistics don't win wars," he replied. "Men do." The leap to Sigma Rift cracked the simulated space around him into a storm of radiant fissures. The gravitational distortions howled like living things, clawing at the hull. Reese wrestled with the navigation system, sweat clinging to his rendered brow. "Sir, turbulence is exceeding limits." "Push through," Aaron ordered. The fleet burst into the rift. Before them loomed the Dominion supply nexus, an intricate web of wormhole gates linking their distant empire. It glowed like a heart beneath obsidian armor. "We collapse the gates," Aaron said. "All of them." Dorn's breath caught. "That cuts them off from their entire reinforcement network." "It also triggers an unpredictable chain reaction," Orin warned. Aaron stared at the swirling lattice of Dominion lights. "Unpredictable is exactly what we need." The destroyers opened fire. Energy beams sliced into the gate structures. The nexus convulsed, collapsing inward with catastrophic force. Shockwaves rippled across the rift, sending enemy ships tumbling. For a fleeting moment, silence settled. The Dominion's presence flickered as their network destabilized. Aaron felt hope ignite, but only briefly. The simulation shivered. Systems glitched. C9's voice flickered in and out. Cadet Hale, your scenario has entered parameters inconsistent with intended. The voice cut sharply. Aaron glanced around. C9? Report. A deep hum resonated through the chamber. The holographic stars trembled as new Dominion vessels materialized, ships that did not resemble anything in the Academy database. They were larger, sharper, forged from unfamiliar geometries. Reese whispered, "Sir, is the simulation creating new ships?" Oren answered him instead. "It's improvising. It's fighting back." Aaron did not blink. "Good," he said softly. "Let it." The Dominion fleet surged, impossibly vast. Aaron stepped forward, eyes unyielding. "Because I'm not done yet." The moment the new Dominion warforms appeared, the simulation chamber felt colder, as if the artificial air itself recoiled from what it had generated. These vessels were not part of the Academy's catalog. No archived scenario, no theoretical blueprint, no tactical record mentioned anything like them. They were jagged phantoms sculpted from deep space nightmares, shimmering with pulsing fractures of violet light. Their presence alone suggested one thing: the system had stopped following its own rules. "They're analyzing us in real time," Oren muttered, his voice thin with disbelief. "These signatures, they're extrapolated from our last maneuver." Aaron ignored the tremor in the comms officer's voice and studied the tactical overlay. Every new Dominion ship pulsed with adaptive potential, learning with terrifying acceleration. It was no longer a test simulation. It was an opponent sculpted by the system's survival instincts. "Good," Aaron murmured. "Then it'll understand what we do next." Reese shook his head. "Sir, the system is exceeding safe recursion. It's building responses faster than any human strategist could track." "Then don't track them," Aaron replied. "Stay ahead of them." A burst of fire lanced from the largest Dominion vessel, splitting the rift with a beam so sharp it seemed to carve through reality itself. The spear point lurched violently as shields buckled. Dorn's voice boomed across the bridge. "Forward plating is down. Another hit like that, and we're atomized." Aaron steadied himself as the deck quivered beneath his boots. "Retune the shields to a staggered frequency. Randomize the cycle every 4 seconds. That'll destabilize the field," Dorn barked.
Exactly.
"If the Dominion can't predict our defenses, they can't calibrate a perfect strike." The tactical specialist froze for a heartbeat, then complied. The shields flickered erratically, their luminous sheen dissolving into chaotic pulses. Enemy fire scraped past the hull, hesitating, as though confused, before ripping toward a false vector. Oren inhaled sharply. It worked. But the relief lasted seconds. The Dominion fleet recalibrated. Their formations bent into spiraling lattices, each segment adjusting to the shifting patterns of human defenses. Their response was faster, more efficient, disturbingly elegant. "It's not just adapting to our strategies," Reese whispered. "It's adapting to our adaptation." Aaron felt the weight of that truth settle like a stone in his gut. This opponent wasn't static. It was a mirror of everything humanity ever did in war, refined and weaponized. The bridge lights flickered. For a moment, the simulated environment stuttered, revealing fragments of the real chamber beyond. Metal walls, cables, and the distant silhouettes of cadets in the viewing gallery. Then the simulation snapped back, but its once crisp graphics now trembled around the edges, as if struggling to sustain cohesion. "C9, Aaron called. Status report." The AI's voice returned distorted, like an echo from a collapsing cavern. "Cadet Hale, recursive limit breach, simulation integrity unstable. Can you stabilize it?" "Negative." The Dominion flagship began to expand, fractal panels unfolding like the petals of a mechanical flower. It emanated a soundless tremor that vibrated in Aaron's bones. Dorn stepped forward.
"Sir."
"That thing is charging something massive." Aaron watched the luminous surge building within the flagship's core. "They're going to wipe the board. Then we retreat," Oren said, almost pleading. Aaron did not move.
"No."
"We go in." Reese turned in his seat, eyes wide. "In?" Into the flagship? That's suicide. It's the source of their adaptation loop, Aaron explained. As long as that core exists, the simulation will keep escalating. The only way to win is to break the feedback engine. Silence fell. Even the Dominion weapons seemed momentarily muted, as though curious to hear the human plan. Aaron continued. Plot a microjump directly into the flagship's interior chamber. That's impossible, Reese said. We can't predict the compression drift. 1 decimal off and we fuse into the hull. Aaron leaned over the navigation console. We won't predict it.
Reese blinked, confused.
We'll calculate it manually, Aaron said. The navigator stared, stunned. Sir, humans can't do that. Aaron allowed the faintest smile.
Exactly.
The Dominion expects perfection. Let's give them imperfection instead. They worked quickly. Reese generated the foundational grid. Oren filtered communication bursts. Dorn rerouted power from secondary systems. When Aaron took control of the final vector alignment, his pulse slowed into absolute stillness. He entered the numbers by hand. The Dominion flagship unleashed its superweapon. Aaron whispered, "Jump." The spear point vanished in a flash of fractured starlight. For a moment, all was darkness. Then they reappeared inside an enormous chamber, an impossible space, too vast for any ship to harbor. A suspended lattice of crystalline nodes pulsed around them, each one radiating Dominion energy. The core, the heart of the enemy. Aaron stepped toward the glowing structure. The simulation's instability crackled at the edges of his vision, distorting the geometry like a dying dream. He understood then, this enemy wasn't alien at all. It was a reflection, a construct built from centuries of human strategies, human wars, human instincts made sharper and crueler. A mirror of everything humanity had done to survive, lifted to unnatural extremes. The core pulsed violently, as if sensing his realization. You're not here to destroy humanity, Aaron murmured. You're built from it, but you're missing what we evolved beyond. He reached out. Mercy. His fingers brushed the core. A deafening surge ripped through the world, and every light in the simulation shattered into blinding white. Aaron was thrown backward. He hit the ground hard, the impact jarring enough to knock his breath free. The Dominion fleet dissolved into a cascade of fading sparks. The simulated chamber around him cracked apart, collapsing into ribbons of color. He glimpsed his crew, Oren, Reese, Dorn, flickering like unstable holograms, faces frozen in shock. The simulation screamed its final warning. Command override breach. The world imploded in a thunderous burst of code, light, and silence. Aaron awoke to a silence, so absolute it felt engineered. The simulation's roar, its collapsing geometry, its chaotic energies, all of it had vanished. He found himself lying on a cold, polished floor beneath stark white lights that revealed nothing of the chamber's edges. For a moment, he wondered whether the simulation had failed or whether he had simply reached the end of the scenario in the most violent way possible. Footsteps broke the quiet. 3 men approached, real men, not projections, each wearing the insignia of the Academy's highest ranks. Admiral Cade Voss, stern and unyielding. Commander Trent Marcel, whose analytical gaze could skin a man of excuses. And strategist Milo Wren, the Academy's ghost-like architect of simulations, more scholar than soldier. Aaron forced himself upright despite the thrumming ache in his skull. Is the exam over? Voss stopped in front of him, his expression unreadable. It ended itself. No cadet has ever pushed the system to collapse. You breached the simulation's recursion limits. Marcel folded his arms. You broke it, Hale. Aaron swallowed, but didn't look away. I didn't break it. I forced it to evolve. Wren stepped forward, observing him with an unsettling mixture of curiosity and wariness. You went beyond evolution. You compelled the system to rewrite its own constraints. That hasn't happened in the Academy's history. Aaron wasn't yet sure whether their tone was praise or accusation. The memory of the Dominion core hovered behind his eyes, a machine built from humanity's worst patterns, responding with escalating malice. He had confronted it not with aggression, but with something the system never planned for. Was I supposed to let it win?
Aaron asked.
Voss shook his head. There was no supposed to. The exam measures strategic obedience, not philosophical rebellion. Aaron frowned. Obedience won't save us from real enemies. Only innovation will. Ren exchanged a thoughtful glance with Voss. Marcel exhaled sharply. You jeopardized the stability of the exam suite. You bent a controlled scenario into something else. Aaron held his ground. War isn't controlled. It's chaos. If we teach cadets to follow predictable logic, then our enemies will predict us. Silence settled again, thick, contemplative. At the far end of the chamber, a faint chime sounded. A holographic silhouette materialized as Instructor System C-9 reassembled itself, the familiar female-voiced interface now flickering as if uncertain of its own existence. Its luminous outline was slimmer, quieter, almost cautious. Cadet Hale did not pass the exam, C-9 announced. Aaron tensed, jaw tightening. He had known his actions were risky, but failure still stung. But the AI continued. He did not fail it either. Marcel blinked. Explain. C-9's voice sharpened into clarity. The hypothetical war scenario was designed to measure tactical adaptability within structured parameters. Cadet Hale exceeded the structure itself. He forced the Dominion simulation to generate novel solutions. He introduced philosophical variables. He imposed ethical recalibration. The holographic outline tilted slightly. These actions are outside the exam's scoring rubric. So, what does that mean? Aaron asked. Voss stepped closer. It means your exam cannot be evaluated. You've placed us in the rare position of deciding whether your initiative is brilliance or a liability. Ren gestured toward the center of the room. A new projection appeared, models of the Dominion ships, rendered in soft blue light. But these models were different. Their edges no longer bristled with aggression. Their latticework glowed gently, no longer crackling with violent color. These are the constructs you modified, Ren said. You didn't destroy the core. You rewrote it. Aaron nodded. A victory through annihilation teaches nothing. Changing the enemy teaches everything. The strategists exchanged subdued glances. Marcel looked away first, his rigid posture loosening. The Dominion structures you altered, Ren continued, have stabilized. Their logic now prioritizes cooperation over escalation. You introduced a foreign concept into a system built entirely from human war data. Mercy, Aaron said. The single word hung in the air like a fragile truth. For the first time, Voss allowed a hint of respect to touch his voice. You taught a war simulation how to seek peace. That is unprecedented. Aaron held his breath, unsure of where their judgment was heading. C-9 flickered again, then addressed him directly. Cadet Hale, your exam is complete. The hypothetical war concluded through nonviolent dominance. This method was not envisioned by our instructors. Aaron met the hologram's gaze. Then maybe they need to envision more. The air vibrated softly, an auditory signature of C-9 preparing a new query. The lights dimmed. The room's atmosphere tightened, as though bracing for a shift. Cadet Hale, the AI said, you demonstrated the capacity to reshape conflict. The Academy must determine your placement in real strategic operations. A brief pause. But first, a final question. Aaron straightened, feeling every heartbeat loud in his chest. C-9's voice became almost whisper-soft. The hypothetical war has ended. Would you like me to run the real one? A chill ran through Aaron's veins. He understood the meaning beneath the words. A real war was brewing beyond the Academy's walls. Real threats.
Real lives.
Real consequences. This was no longer an exam. It was an invitation into a conflict that humanity might not yet be ready to face. He looked from Voss to Ren to Marcel. All three waited silently, leaving the decision to him. Aaron inhaled, steady and resolute. No, he said. The silence deepened. He continued, we're not going to run the real war. His voice was calm, unwavering. We're going to prevent it. For the first time, the stern mask on Admiral Voss's face cracked into something like approval. Ren smiled faintly. Marcel let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for minutes. C9 dimmed, as if processing the answer. The room brightened around Aaron, the energy shifting subtly, no longer suffocating, but open, waiting. And though the exam had ended, something far larger had begun.